I'm Jenny Grabelski, the Supervisory Attorney at Northern Illinois Justice for Our Neighbors. Keeping the dream alive means citizenship for all. Last year, national JFON and 19 JFONs from across the country came together with the All of Us campaign, and we demanded a pathway to citizenship. Many organizations participated in year-long local and national campaigns and fought hard for citizenship through the budget reconciliation process, and even after every no we received from the parliamentarian, we continued to fight. We worked collectively and met with hundreds of legislative officials throughout the year to send a message to Congress on the need for a pathway to citizenship. National JFON was represented in Washington, D.C. in September of 2021 to demand that the promises made by the Biden administration to immigrant communities were kept. Today, on the 10-year anniversary of DACA, we are not taking no for an answer and will continue to demand that the Biden administration, without burdensome requirements and without additional enforcement, provide humane relief and justice with a pathway to citizenship for all.
Aloha, my name is Bettina Mock, and I'm with the Legal Clinic in Honolulu, Hawaii. Since President Biden took office, over 2.3 million reported expulsions, apprehensions, and deportations have taken place and continue daily. ICE immigration officers have broad authority to determine whether and when to deport someone. Without legal representation, those facing deportation, including unaccompanied minors and other asylum seekers, are 10 times more likely to be deported than those with legal counsel. Yet in federal immigration court, defendants aren't entitled to a free defense attorney like in civil or criminal court. That's why on this 10th anniversary of DACA, we encourage each of you to advocate for legal defense funding that can ensure due process in our nation's immigration courts. Such legal defense funding can mean freedom from detention, fear, and the threat of deportation for millions of foreign-born residents. Please join us. Mahalo.
Keeping the dream alive means an end to Title 42. Title 42 is not, and has never been, a public health policy. It has always been an immigration enforcement tool. Former CDC officials and public health experts such as Doctors Without Borders have confirmed that it has always been used as an immigration enforcement tool and not a sincere public health policy. Title 42 has been used and to endanger vulnerable individuals and families seeking safety at our southern border. It is time for us to welcome our immigrant neighbors.
Keeping the dream alive means dismantling the current white supremacist immigration system with racist laws that continue to oppress people of color. Time and time again, we see hurtful laws like Title 42, MPP, and many others that use racism to keep immigrants out. What is even more evident is when there are exceptions to the rules for the benefit of white Europeans, as we saw with Ukraine. There is no doubt that what is happening to Ukraine is terrible and that refugees deserve TPS. But so do all of the other Black and brown refugees that have been fighting their own wars for decades. Racist immigration systems continue to harm families and deny relief. Attorneys witness how Black immigrants are subject to unjust treatment and are held to higher bars, or more evidence is demanded from them simply because of their skin color.
TPS was established in 1990 with support from both parties in Congress for people whose countries cannot handle their return due to civil war, armed conflict, environmental or other disasters. This protection allows for recipients to work, pay taxes, and contribute to society without fear of deportation. Of the over 400,000 TPS holders currently in the United States, there is currently no pathway to become a permanent resident or a U.S. citizen, even though many have been here for over 20 years and have children who are U.S. citizens. This includes over 130,000 TPS holders who are essential workers during the COVID-19 pandemic and contribute billions to the U.S. annually. Homeland Security published a Federal Register notice announcing that beneficiaries under the TPS designations for El Salvador, Haiti, Honduras, Nepal, Nicaragua, and Sudan will retain their TPS while the preliminary injunction in Ramos remains in effect, provided their TPS is not withdrawn because of individual ineligibility. In compliance with the injunction, Department of Homeland Security has automatically extended the validity of employment authorizations and other TPS-related documentation for these TPS beneficiaries, which will remain in effect through December 31st, 2022.
Keeping the dream alive means an end to detention. ICE holds tens of thousands of people daily in the equivalent of pretrial detention, without appointed counsel and often without access to bond hearings. ICE jails and deports people who have lived in the United States for decades, including parents of U.S. citizens and people who have arrived recently seeking safety or better life. They are held in one of more than 200 prisons, jails, and prison-like complexes, rife with systematic racism and abuse. These facilities are largely operated by private companies and are remote and isolated. Immigration detention is the unjust and inhumane practice of incarcerating immigrants while they await a determination of their immigration status or potential deportation. In 2021, the United States government detained nearly 250,000 people in over 200 jails across the country run by ICE. ICE has an appalling record of abuse. Many Americans are shocked to learn that while in ICE detention centers, people are deprived of their liberty, denied access to lawyers, separated from their families and loved ones, and subjected to severe medical neglect. These abuses are exacerbated by ICE's refusal to release people from detention during the COVID-19 pandemic, threatening the lives of those detained. Since 2003, over 200 people have died in ICE custody, including 21 deaths in 2020. That was ICE's highest death toll in 15 years. ICE contracts with both local government and private prison companies, a model that creates a perverse financial incentive to keep people incarcerated. Immigrants in detention can be undocumented or documented immigrants, including people whose immigration status is not current, is expired, or is under review. This U.S. locks up survivors of torture, people seeking asylum, visa holders, people who have been granted the permanent right to live in the U.S., people who have lived here for years and may have American citizen spouses and children, individuals with mental health and medical conditions, and other vulnerable groups, including pregnant women, families with children, and even babies.
The need for long-term protections for refugees has never been greater. The world is facing record displacement figures of more than 84 million people who have been forced from their homes. And the escalation of conflicts in Ukraine and Afghanistan triggered an immediate and steep rise in humanitarian needs. This is in addition to protracted or worsening humanitarian crises in places like Syria and Ethiopia, among other countries. Vulnerable individuals and families who are fleeing conflict and persecution deserve a safe place to call home. Now is a critical time to see that our national leaders maximize the use of the U.S. Refugee Admissions Program for Ukrainians and third country nationals fleeing Ukraine, and fulfill its promise to at-risk Afghans left behind, such as by continuing relocation efforts for Afghans overseas, creating a designated parole program for Afghan nationals, and enacting an Afghan Adjustment Act. We also urge President Biden to utilize and strengthen the U.S. resettlement program and extend similar protections to other at-risk refugees, particularly for refugees who have been languishing in the referral pipeline, such as Eritreans, Rohingya, Syrians, and others.